I am a registered professional engineer, and what I'm going to present today on is a case study in pavement preservation. Basically, I'm going to be showing you how we've been able to evaluate success and failure. Now, the one thing I kind of want to go into is life cycle costs. So I go in and I look for how much something costs. I look at a rejuvenator treatment. And generally for the town of Avon, we've used about, for the width of their roads, about $16,000 a mile. There's chip and seal that we've used, that's $33,000 a mile. There's HMA milling and overlay, which generally costs around $187,000 a mile. And it lasts about 10 to 12 years. And then there's HMA full depth reconstruction, which lasts about 20 years and at a cost of $550,000. So you can kind of put those numbers in to your spreadsheet or your life cycle cost analysis tool, whatever you have, and kind of tell, okay, well, how much extra life does this give me? Because I want to see what the cost savings are. Now, when you look at a typical county, for example, you have 500 miles of roadway in a county, and let's say you have an average PAYS rating of 6 or so on that system. The value of that county road network is still $175 million. Now, I'm not using state highway costs to come up with these numbers. I am using average pavement designs for what a city, town, or county would use, which is definitely not the same type of thicknesses that the state DOTs use. Just to give you an example, the town of Avon's road network is worth $40 million. Just for the town. They have about a 94-mile roadway network. So when you start looking at simple math numbers, you start to realize, okay, I've got a significant asset that I have to manage. How much money do I put into this asset to keep it running smooth? Well, next, what you want to do is you want to be able to evaluate your roads. Well, you start with a simple system like PAYSR, which is the Pavement Surface Evaluation and Rating System. Very easy 1 to 10 system. Very easy system to use, to learn, to teach, very hard to screw up, and very easy to replicate. And that's the big thing. You want to be able to get the same numbers from different people as you're using it. That way you get consistent results, and the consistent results is what eventually adds to the credibility of your output. And then you kind of want to set up specific rules for what rating the pavement will get you as far as an end goal goes. What will the score tell me about what maintenance activity will be needed? This is where we get into keeping the good roads good. So we want to set up a cutoff between 3 different types of maintenance for your town. We want to use preventative maintenance, which is your rejuvenators, your chip seals, and your crack seals, which will allow your good roads to stay good. Well, the next thing is you also want to bring your bad roads up to good too, so you can keep them at good as well. So you start with what's called a functional maintenance plan, which of course is your patching, your mill and overlay. And those of course get quite a bit more expensive. And then you go with structural maintenance. Structural maintenance is the entire replacement of your roadway. The end goal is to set up 3 programs with 3 budgets. This keeps your new pavement new and brings your bad pavement up to good standards. Now, here at Schneider, we'll organize the results from the field and we'll display the results on a Beacon website. And in this slide, you can kind of see here's how we've displayed it for the town. The voters of the town can actually see this. They can see how their town streets relate, and they can kind of see that there is a method behind the organization of their town's maintenance program. Now, the town of Avon has been doing this since 1999. When you talk to a lot of people who do pavement preservation, the basic figure goes that asphalt over time ages. It starts out as a 10. Natural aging brings in small cracking that begins to get larger, which begets alligator cracking. The alligator cracking, of course, allows water into the subgrade, which then will give you potholes. And the whole point of that is of course, is to catch the cracks before they become potholes or alligator cracks. So in the pavement quality versus pavement age diagram, you want to see, are we getting an increased life of our pavement based off pavement rejuvenators? Now, when Avon started all their work in 1999, the budget was limited and maintenance activities were trial and error experiments. By 2003, processes were fine-tuned, and by 2005, results started to look pretty positive. Avon's Paiser ratings went from, in 1999, the average town-wide Paiser rating was 7.29, to in 2013, the average Paiser rating was 7.71. So over this 14-year period, the town has actually been bucking the trend of the roadways getting worse. The roadways have actually been getting better through this program. Now let's look at a couple of street examples. We have here White Oak Drive in the town of Avon. Rejuvenator was added in 1999. You can see that the average Paiser rating stayed at a 9 from 1999 to 2005. It did not degrade. In 2008, the Paiser rating dropped to a 7. Well, you can see that there was no Rejuvenator added in 2005, so the effects wore off, the pavement started to degrade. Well, interestingly enough, Rejuvenator was used in 2008, and in 2013, we evaluated the pavement again. Boom. The average Paiser rating is still a 7. Now, just to give you an idea, these results that have been compiled are all based off data that has been looked at in this last year. So when you look at all these numbers, you pour through the records through our GIS data, all of a sudden these things started to pop out to me. I was looking for proof, and the proof basically made itself apparent through this output. I was pretty surprised when I saw it. Now this next example is Corsican Circle. As you can see, in 1999 it was a brand new pavement, Paiser rating of 10. Well, in 2005 there was no treatment for the pavement between 1999 and 2005, and you can see how it drops from a 10 to a 7. Well, Rejuvenator was actually added in 2006, which, as you can tell, all of a sudden the rate of degradation dramatically slows. Well, Corsican was overlaid again in 2010, and by 2013 we're back down to an 8 again. It hasn't been shot. It's going to be shot pretty soon. Now let's look at Harvest Ridge Drive. Again, this is a great example of a roadway with no treatment. Again, it starts out as a 9 in 1999, which is virtually new pavement, drops to a 6 in 2005, was overlaid in 2006, and then starts to drop again to a 9 in 2008, and again drops to an 8 in 2013. So again, you can see this is what happens when you don't do anything to the pavement. Now this roadway, Austin Drive, I find incredibly insightful when you look at the line graph for Paiser rating on it. This roadway was never overlaid. In 1999, we found the roadway at a 7. It needed a little bit of TLC basically, so it was crack sealed in 99 and it was patched fairly well in 2000. But the roadway had Rejuvenator used on it in 2003, 2006, and 2009. It was actually put on more often than what we had used in the past. It was one of those situations where in the beginning the town was using Rejuvenator on specific roadways instead of entire networks. So what we ended up with was this street that basically had accidentally been treated 3 times. What we found is the Paiser rating from 99 to 2008 actually stayed the same. It went from a 7 in 1999 to a 7 in 2005 to a 7 in 2008. It only dropped to a 6 in 2013, but a 1 Paiser rating drop in 14 years is incredible. And you can kind of see that's how it slows down pavement degradation. So when you look at all 4 of these lines put together, it looks kind of like a jumbled mess, but you can kind of see how quick pavement degrades without preservation versus how slow it degrades with preservation. There is a dramatic increase in pavement life. Now when you look at the Paiser ratings from 1999, you can see the Avon ratings, a lot of red in their system. There was a lot of roadways that were bad, a lot of roadways that were good. It was kind of a mishmash when the town started on this program. But we get to Austin Drive over here on the northeast side of Avon. And again, you see in 1999 a blow up of the area around Austin Drive where I have the arrow pointed to. It never gets overlaid, but it does get patched and sealed and does get regular doses of Rejuvenator. So in 2005, again, you see a lot of red, yellow, and green. Again, we go to 2013. Interesting thing about this graphic is there's a couple private roads now. The town has expanded over a larger area. You get new roadways that have been incorporated from the county. They have come in and boom, those are in poor shape. And a lot of private streets that have come in are in very poor shape. They haven't had pavement preservation or pavement maintenance, and it shows. So in 2013, these roadways that have been incorporated are now part of the town's responsibility. And in 2013, again, you can see Austin Drive, which started at a 7 in 99, had 3 rejuvenating treatments. Since, it has now been repaved and is a 6 today. You can see it in the map. The maps, of course, have all the data right there. It's just a matter of cross-checking the Paisley rating with the treatments that were done over the years, and the data starts to become self-evident. One of the things I also like to look at is how quickly do we know pavement basically starts to degrade versus what are we seeing out in the field. The interesting thing is when you look at a 2013 versus 2008 analysis, you find out that you get about 4 to 6 extra years of pavement out of this 5-year analysis. That's almost 100% rate of return as far as the gain in pavement life that you're getting out of your roadway network using a lot of these treatments. In this exhibit, purple is very good. That's basically meaning you're getting a 5 to 12 year rate of return or increase out of your pavement life. When you look at 2005 to 2013, you see more purple. Basically, over this 8-year period, you see about a 6-year gain in pavement life on average. Again, you're still looking, and then that's a conservative number, you're looking at close to 100% rate of return on pavement life. And again, we go to 2013. What I was basically able to deduce that over this 13-year period, we've seen about an average of 8 to 10 years of gained pavement life versus traditional pavement degradation that we've seen with untreated roadways. So what does that mean? When you look at this graph, you can kind of see the average Paisley degradation of using overlays, mill and overlays or reconstructions versus rejuvenator treatment. You can see that using that maintenance program, the pavement degrades a lot slower. You basically get twice the pavement life out of your treatments. Now, what does that mean? When you look at all this through an economic analysis, we like to use net present cost of repaving versus a rejuvenator treatment. I looked at running the analysis using a 4% rate of return, and the net present cost to rejuvenate roads divided by the net present cost to overlay and repave roads gave me a number of 0.61. Now, what does that mean to anybody? That means that, and this is a conservative figure, we save the town of Avon at least 39 to 40% on the value of their roadway network as far as maintenance goes. These numbers, again, when I was going through them, I wasn't trying to come up with anything or look for confirmation bias. These were things, the numbers started to make themselves apparent. If you actually get into the nuts and bolts, my guess is you might actually find that the pavement savings is actually greater than 40%. Now, what does that mean when you look at a graph of the life of the two treatments? You can kind of see the traditional method's cost versus the rejuvenator method. You can see the rejuvenator method starts out with a little more money in the beginning because you're starting to treat the pavement. That's what makes a lot of people leery about getting involved first. But after you get past year 10, when that roadway starts to degrade and needs to be repaved, it starts to show up in potholes, you mill and overlay it, then you see a huge jump increase in the cost of maintaining your roadways. And as you go through time, year 20, year 30, year 40, you can see that these lines start to diverge. And what you basically end up with is your 39% cost savings shown between the two curves. It's generally after year 10, the program really starts to pay for itself in spades. Now, what does this mean that when you finally get to a program that you've evaluated and you start to implement? Well, every year, of course, things change. When you go out and look at your roads, you have certain budgets you have to deal with. So given those budgets and, of course, fluctuating material costs, you want to be able to evaluate what you can do this year. Again, at Schneider, we use GIS to move roadways around to make sure that anything that we miss this year, we can get next year, that when we reprioritize, we make sure that the roads that have been missed have been basically gotten to the next year. So, and we want to keep track of what works for us. We know the materials that have been used out in Avon. We know what works for us. So these tools help make your case to decision makers. So with the decision makers, you want to argue, you want to avoid short-term gain for long-term costs. Now I want to show you some of the things we found in Avon. You can kind of see, here's one roadway network. We have a control side where you have cracks on the left side, restorative sealer added on the right. You can see where the cracks have basically stopped going across the roadway. The restorative sealer basically stopped the cracks from aging the roadway. Here's another example. You can see on the left side, the control side, a lot of cracks. You get a lot of transverse cracking. There's the start of some alligator cracking with the transverse cracking. And on the right side, very few, if no cracks at all. As a matter of fact, the only crack on the restorative sealer side was propagated by a crack on the control side, which tells me it probably wouldn't have even been there had it not been for the fact that you had problems on the control side. So the restorative sealer side actually shows up working compared to the control sides. Basically, these are what happens, what I would say, after year 3 of a restorative treatment. A lot of DOTs have only evaluated these treatments for the first 18 months, and what they see is there's no difference. Well, anybody who has ever watched pavement degradation knows that pavement doesn't really start to degrade until year 2. Once year 2 is passed, you start to get your micro cracking and your transverse cracking. That's where your restorative sealers come in. You hit that the first time. And again, a couple years later, you look at the 2 roadway networks and you do see a dramatic increase. So, you know, a lot of the state DOTs, they haven't bought into this yet, but I feel that they actually haven't looked at this long enough. Town of Avon, we've been looking at this now for 13 years, and we've started to see there's a lot of proof in what we've been watching. So in summary, I'd like to basically tell you, you got to stay committed to this process and the program. You want to stay the course and you want to keep consistent records. It's very important to keep consistent records. GIS is a very easy way of doing it. It allows you to go back in time and easily look and see what we did this year, what the ratings were of the roadway, and start to compare the different numbers. And what that basically allows you to find and present is it starts to really show the savings materialize the further down the road you get. And you want to make that output available to your constituents through websites, through press releases, through whatever. You want to convert the public into believers. Right now, they know that their street gets overlaid and that's what gets them a new pavement, but they're starting to complain about the costs. They don't want to pay the taxes on that. Well, there are solutions. There are ways to save money to keep that maintenance cost down. And you want to use this output to make the case for continuing that program, because you know, happy public equals happy voters. And in the end, that's what matters. So finally, I'll just say this, the easiest things to say in conclusion is to track your pavement conditions and treatments, both of them. Make sure you track what you've used and what conditions the pavements have been in. Reprioritize and reevaluate yearly, and you want to stay committed to process and program.